Ladies and gentlemen, our next guest on today's show, Women Leaders in Petchem series Insights with Nidhi Verma, is Malini Hariharan, Director, Market Development APAC for ICIS. Malini is a very well name in the Asian petchem industry. She began her career with 6 years in IPCL and has completed 20 years in ICIS. Silver Jubilee completed in our industry. I have been interacting with Malini for over 13 years for the topics and the speakers for my conferences. And I'm so glad today to interview her today myself. A very warm welcome to the show, Malini.
Thank you, Nidhi, and my hellos to everyone.
Malini, do share some highlights of your journey which come to your mind when you look back today.
Nidhi, it's been a long journey, but I must say that it's been an exciting and an absolutely enriching journey. And when I look back now, and when I joined this industry, I must say that there were questions in my mind at that time, whether this job was a right fit, whether this industry was a right fit. And essentially, I came to this industry right after college. And as you're well aware, when you're studying, the only industries that you tend to relate to are those that are more consumer focused rather than those that are B2B type of businesses. So these doubts actually did persist for nearly a year, I must say, but gradually as I understood the dynamics of the business, and that's what really makes this industry so fascinating. And additionally, I also got a ringside view of the ups and downs of commodity markets, right? And that in itself is so fascinating that I very soon fell in love with the industry and have continued since for over 20 years now. And there are many highlights to this journey. Some may seem quite small, even routine, but they had a deep impact at that point in time. I recall that in my first job, we had a very intensive training program for graduate entrance into that organization. And that training program stretched to around 6 months. And we were at that time thinking, oh my God, this is like a really long period for a training. What we really wanted was just to get our hands dirty and get onto the job. But as we walked through all of those different petrochemical plants that IPCL had, and understood the processes, seeing those polymer pellets for the first time, and then the finished plastic products, everything started clicking, and it suddenly started making sense. When I moved to ICIS, the one point that I really remember is the first time I started covering the market. Right? So just picking up the phone and making those calls across Asia, talking to different producers, traders, understanding where prices were, what are those factors that are shaping the markets, and then putting it all together, condensing it all in a few hundred words so that everybody else could make sense of the markets. So these are like, some of those points in the journey which come to mind when you ask me this question. The other thing about this journey has also been the interactions I've had. I mean, I have always loved interacting with people, and especially here at ICIS with our customers. So understanding their business problems, explaining the value, and trying to solve those problems. That's really been a big highlight. And it's through these customers that I've been able to understand the working of a number of different industries, packaging, automotive, or electronics. So in a sense, I'm fortunate that both my jobs offered a great learning experience. And importantly, I've had the right teachers and mentors who have taken me through this journey, allowing me to develop myself as an individual and also work with teams that are globally spread out, meet diverse set of people, form great friendships, great colleagues, and really make this journey very, very enriching for me.
Thank you, Malini. It's so good to hear you trying to encapsulate the whole 25 years. And yes, I think you have a complete 360 degrees view of our petchem industry. and you've done it from grassroots up, so you understand it perfectly well. And I think in your roles in ICIS itself, from editorials to training and now to market development, you've kind of seen our entire industry from all angles. Malini, you moved to Singapore 2 years back. What support came from your husband's side to assist you in your professional career?
Maybe both of us have been independent professionals, so to say, and we've always been supportive of each other's career choices. So in a sense, my husband's always encouraged me to take a decision which I feel is right for myself. And that's the biggest support that one can look for. And I must say here that yes, the support from the spouse is critical, very important. But additionally, it's also the support that I've received from my wider family, my friends. All of them together form a support group which every woman, a working woman, definitely needs. And I have been able to reach out to them and count on them whenever something's cropped up. It could be at the home front, it could be at the work front, it could be as simple as picking up the phone and being able to just talk to them and share, how your day has been or how the week has been. So it's this kind of flexibility, this kind of that support system, that really then enables me to perform. And so I would say the transition from Mumbai to Singapore through the active support of my husband, my parents-in-laws, my wider circle of friends, all of that has made that transition quite easy. And I've not really felt that big shift.
Wonderful. So I think your entire support system has your back, and then Malini can keep marching forward. It is very important, and I totally agree with you. Malini, what is the statistical overview of women in workplace in the data analysis and consultancy organization like yours? Are women sitting on board, and are they at senior positions in your organizations?
So Nidhi, at ICIS, 48% of our workforce is women, and we have a number of programs, both at ICIS and also at our parent organization, the RELEX, programs dedicated to women. The company itself places a lot of emphasis on diversity, inclusion, equality, and is committed to promoting these values. So there's equal opportunity available at every level, and ultimately what really matters is the individual's performance. So every individual can then focus on giving one's best, without having to worry whether the organization actually, has these values or not. So not surprisingly then, women are very much part of the senior management at ICIS, and they've been there for many years now. And they're all a role model for us and a big inspiration for the rest of us in the organization.
Excellent. I think 48% is something which we can really aspire. And I hope that our ratios also increase, and whether the production organizations, the refining, the end users, the converters, processors, we hope that that can become an example. Malini, you've stayed with one organization with over 2 decades. Do you think that it is you, or it is also a reflection of what women's USP are as an employee, loyalty? What other distinguishing aspects you think that women bring to the table?
Nidhi, I think it's ultimately about finding that right fit. So, the key is to know what you are looking for in your career, whether the organization offers it, and also equally understand what the organization is looking for. And then to look where you can grow along with that organization. So women obviously do bring in certain qualities to the table. We have a great ability to multitask. We are hardworking, we're patient, organization and planning skills. All of this, these are just a few that I'm listing, but we do bring these qualities very much whenever we join the workforce. But it's also equally important that all of us remain flexible and open to new ideas or in how we can develop and shape our careers. We can look at a lot of people, wish for their careers, look for inspiration, but ultimately, each of us have to make our own choices, and we have to take our own path based on our skill sets, our expectations, and the environment around us, and even our own personalities. And so the journeys itself can be quite different. So yes, in a way, I would say that partly a reflection of my own personality, partly a reflection of the opportunities that were available within the organization. And I would also like to believe that partly it is something that we women bring when we join the workforce.
This is the way we are intrinsically built. Malini, your audience would be diverse for pricing, for contracts, benchmarking, assessing of markets, majorly refiners, traders, end users, and producing companies. How has the landscape changed over the past decades in terms of representation of women in your audience?
But first of all, I'm very happy to say that the numbers are growing. So the percentage of women in the workforce in these companies has steadily grown over the years. There were times in the early stages of my career when I would walk into a meeting or walk into an industry event, and I would have to look for other women in that gathering. And certainly, Nidhi, you will also remember in the early days when you used to organize your conferences, there weren't many women over there, right? Be it as a delegate or even up on the dais presenting and speaking about the industry and the markets. So I'm glad that that's no longer the case, right? Now, when you do go to these women events, you do see quite a few women out there. So we are on the right path, but I must say that we still have a long way to go.
We can do much better. We can do much better.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Malini, that now you're in Singapore, do you feel a stark change in the environment, whether not only for women, but for normal environment of working?
I think the one thing that comes to mind is the pandemic, right? And how that's kind of really made a big shift in our working life. In a sense, it's been a big leveler because all of us are now working from home. So it's no longer women having to face this big pressure of juggling the workplace and the home. I think with men also now working from home, they also can see the pressures that a woman would otherwise face. So I would say that in that sense, it's a big leveler, and be it Singapore or be it India, it's very much the same everywhere. I would also say that maybe I grew up in Gujarat. I come from Baroda. I have worked in Baroda. I have worked in Mumbai, and the representation of women in both of these places in the workforce is a lot higher than it is in many other parts of India. So I have, in that sense, been used to having a lot of women colleagues around me. And certainly the percentages would be higher in places like Singapore, but equally it's there has been a substantial number also there in Mumbai or in Baroda.
So you've seen the best.
Well, yes, I should like to think so.
Malini, how our industry can attract new talent in chemicals, plastics specifically, now that the image is much better with sustainability being the focus of our fraternity?
So this actually has been an issue for a very long time, Nidhi, and every time the industry kind of gets together, discusses it, and essentially it all boils down to perceptions. Chemical industry not being generally seen as a very glamorous industry as maybe say a finance or information technology. And a lot of efforts have been put in by companies, by industry associations to attract talent. And to my mind, I think communication is the key, right? All of us who are within the industry know what an exciting place it is. We all know the contribution that this industry makes, and we just need to be good ambassadors ourselves and find the right forums where we can go and speak about this. And to also reach out to students, right? So right when they are in school or in the early days of the college, this kind of a message goes in so that when they are thinking about a career, the chemical industry also comes to their mind. We need to make this an exciting career choice. And I'm sure that, all of us who love this industry can go out there and make this an exciting choice. We need to focus on communicating the value that this industry brings, how it is at the forefront of innovation, and how the chemical industry ultimately touches all other industries. So that's really the message that we need to take out there. And that, I think, will then slowly bring in a lot more talent into the industry.
A lot of work needs to be done right from the grassroots level. Yeah, I agree with you. If you're speaking to Malini, we have to ask these questions. The prices of the raw materials have played havoc in the last few months amongst processors because of different reasons. Could you share how do you think the next few months are going to pan out?
So what you're seeing today in the markets is, you could almost describe it like a perfect storm. And one thing I must say here is that it's not just about plastics, or polymers, where you're seeing this kind of, the same is the case for many, many other commodity chemicals. And really, you then need to kind of step back and look at the basic fundamentals. Look at what's happening to demand and what's happening to supply. Last year was an extremely unusual year where you saw some very wild swings coming in, both on the demand side and on the supply side. The pandemic and the lockdowns initially hit the demand. Demand then came back in a big way, and then you started seeing various supply issues coming in different parts, different corners of the world. So we started off 2021 on what we in the industry like to say is on a tight footing, right? Supplies were pretty tight, and prices were kind of holding quite firm in most markets around the world. And then heading into February, you suddenly had this situation in the US Gulf Coast where the winter storms came in, and that resulted in the closure or operating rate cuts of many, many plants. So if you look at polypropylene, around 80% of the US capacity was hit. In the case of polyethylenes, LLDP was around 54%. So needless to say, that had an immediate impact on the market. We've seen export volumes drop out of the US. We've seen buyers panicking across the world. And as is the case usually when these kind of situations emerge, the first priority for buyers is to secure supplies. And that in itself creates additional demand and provides this upward momentum to prices. And to top all of this, there has been all those issues around logistics, right? Freight rates, container availability, and that's kind of persisting even today. So on the polymer supply side, you're seeing now the plants restarting in the US. So, as they stabilize operations, you're probably going to see more volumes come into the market. But the logistics issue doesn't look like it's going to be resolved anytime soon. So and then you're also seeing crude oil prices go up now. So there's an upward momentum coming to costs as well. We have to now wait and see really, what happens on the buyer side. We do hear about some buyer resistance coming in certain pockets, certain segments. Ultimately, for a buyer, can he run his plant at these prices, right? How are his margins? To what extent has it been squeezed? Has he been able to pass on these cost increases? So there are certain decisions that buyers will have to take. And supply side itself should normalize soon. Additionally, in the second quarter, we do have some new plants that are due to start up. And once these start up, we'll see some additional volumes coming into the market, and that should hopefully bring a better balance into the market, and therefore then, some bit of correction coming into the pricing.
I think we need a full-blown session for taking more aspects of what you are picking up from the markets, which we shall plan soon. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of requests after this session. Well, then I think what I've read on the social media, Malini, outside of work, you go into yoga, your walks, and meditation, because all that information in your mind you need to unwind. And of course, your cooking spreads. I did miss sharing them when I used to live next door to you. Now I think you are far away, and we'll have to look for another opportunity. But what rules or what kind of principles or guidelines, Malini, that you have set for yourself, which you would like to share for your audience?
Um, I think I'd like to say they're very simple rules and probably rules that many of us live by. We try to just live in the present, take each day as it comes, and try to find happiness or joy in simple things, respect all, and keep reminding yourself of these rules. I think that's really the most important thing, because the fact is that as you work, or in that journey of life, it's very possible that sometimes you might just take your eyes off these simple rules. So what we really need is then to keep reminding ourselves of that, so that it becomes like a second habit to you. And try and unwind whenever possible. Family and friends are always there. It's really important that however busy you are, you do take some time off to be with them and to build some cherished memories with them.
Perfect. I think you've explained the basic principles so easily. And yes, after the pandemic, most of the people are now focusing on the things that you've outlined. Malini, it's been such a pleasure to speak to you, and we are looking forward to see you soon when things open up at one of our conferences, which are opening up physically in September. Till then, stay safe, and we are going to touch base with you again. Thank you again.
Thank you, Nidhi, and thank you to your audience as well. And I do look forward, I do miss your conferences, and I do look forward to being back there.
Bye-bye. Thank you.